I gonna do this?
We're live.
I know. Oh well. I was gonna play the intro, but we are the. Who are we?
Rotohackers, your unauthorized reporters of fantasy football news and information.
And we're underground because we've committed horrendous crimes.
Well, I don't
Horrendous?
have a basement, so I'm just in the living room.
I'm in an undisclosed location. Where are you, Jared?
I don't know. I don't know either.
We don't even know.
I'm like the wrestler who comes from parts unknown.
Oh,
Parts unknown, broadcasting from parts unknown. And then I will talk in the ultimate warrior voice.
Oh, well, salutations, everybody. My name is Judah Buddha. As you can see, if you're watching, nobody's watching, but I'm Judah Buddha. Next to me is AJ Herschel, the kid, and Jared.
There we go.
Much better intro.
There we go. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
Is that the diamonds? That's Jared.
I don't know.
I think yeah, that's kind of is, yeah. Maybe a little bit.
Riffing off some diamond commercials. So today, what I would like to talk about, if we can, if we can get past the news, if there was any news, I would like to do a segment on our flag players, the players that we want to have on our bench, not on our bench, on our roster. The ones, if we do multiple leagues, we end up with a lot of shares of the player that if you have, you feel good going into the season. You feel safe. So before that, let me check, see if there was any news. Did you guys see any news between now and I guess it's Thursday when we?
No, nothing really. There was a report that first there was a report that Ezekiel Elliott was flying back and that there might be a contract done by the end of the weekend, and then it came out that he could still be flying back. I don't know, but then Stephen Jones said, no, nothing's imminent. We're still very optimistic about something getting done. Stuff can come together quickly, but there's not really like a lot of back and forth right now.
What do you guys think? AJ, do you think have your thoughts changed at all on Ezekiel? Is he going? Really. I mean, nothing's really happened to so
yeah. I'm still wary of him just in fantasy in general. Whenever I see him on the draft board, I'm like, can I take like pick 5 or something like that? Just so if someone else takes him, there's still someone else good on the board I can grab. Like I'd rather take Saquon or Alvin Kamara, even though Ezekiel Elliott theoretically would probably end up being the second, maybe even first best running back if he played the whole year. I just don't know if he is. I still don't feel comfortable taking him.
Yeah, I don't think you can take him as a top 3 guy. I think you have to go Barkley, McCaffrey, and Kamara. After that, though, I'd be willing to take him. But I got fortunate. Like once he started to slip a little bit, I actually just got another team to draft because I was thinking like, he might, he could sign any day. Who knows? And it ended up just working out perfectly because I got the 7th pick and he fell to the 7th pick. And I'm like, I will take him at the 7th pick all day. And I think, like I said last time, like the thing that makes me feel better about his holdout is the fact that Dallas has like clearly established Tony Pollard as the guy if Zeke isn't there. So he's a guy that, in auction drafts, you can, you save a few bucks for him. Usually I'm getting him for, $1 or $2. And, or, you take him in a later round, in a snake draft or something. So I still feel fine about it. I think it's completely different from the Melvin Gordon situation where I think he's going to miss half the year probably. But I don't know. We'll see. It's a risk.
Well, do you think in this case, no news is good news? I don't think no news is good. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
But the last time we talked was on Thursday.
Yeah, so, I mean this. What is a deadline you're in? As you approach Ezekiel Elliott, is there a limit, a deadline? Like if he doesn't sign by this time, I'm just writing him off, or?
I don't know. No, not really. I mean,
I think August 6th was a big date, but that came and went.
Yeah, his situation is just completely different from a lot of the others.
Hmm.
I don't know, like I don't remember is it like September, like is it the 6th or the 13th, or I can't remember when the actual first game. I guess it's like
the
the
3rd or the 4th because Bears Packers plays.
Yeah, it's that first. Okay, yeah, that the Bears Packers is like the 3rd or the 4th on a Thursday night, and then the full, that Sunday's like the 6th or something like that. So, I mean, I don't know if how late I'll be drafting teams. If I was if it was past that final week of the preseason, and he still wasn't, so like 10 days from now, if he still hadn't signed, like, then I would start having more trouble taking it. I would have to start sliding him down a little bit. But honestly, I think like he might miss. I could see potentially missing like a week or two or something, but I just can't imagine them just letting this go. I mean, because they're close, and we know, like with Melvin Gordon, it's not. I don't think it's that close. With Ezekiel Elliott, right now they're offering to make him the second highest paid. He probably wants to be the highest paid because that's just, I think, like we talked last time, the standard these days. Like whoever, even if you're the 7th best at your position, if you're in that upper tier, you want like the best money because you're just the one signing the most recent contract. Maybe they just agree to give him like $1 more than Todd Gurley and, have some kinds of incentives or something that, protects them a little bit. I don't know. And surely they get something done. It just feels like it's too close to not get something done. And the more, if Pollard continues to do well, then that just puts more pressure on Elliott too, for, because they can just be like, well, all right.
Well, we'll see. I think, the other thing I'm worried about is health. A lot of times you see these guys hold out. They haven't been, even if they stay in shape, they haven't been pushed to that, that limit of being in the preseason. And they come out and they tweak something.
You get pushed to a limit in the preseason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree on that because of what the preseason has turned into. Like Zeke just doesn't get carries, at least in games.
No, but I'm not talking about playing. I'm talking about their exercise regime. Just the practices are intense.
Yeah,
they start really getting into it and doing. There's a lot of intense exercise that he's missing out on. Now he might be doing it at home, but it's just not to the same level as a coach yelling at you like, hey, and not that they'd be yelling at Zeke Elliott, but I mean, I don't know, maybe, but just doing it with all the other guys, the competition of being with the boys,
So well, he's actually been in Cabo training. So you're suggesting that his Cabo training regime hasn't been equally strenuous as I heard. He's been doing a lot of like bicep curls at the bar and things like that. I think his arms might be stronger than his legs now. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I think there's some validity to that, but it's not like a big concern. Plus, like, he's just one of those guys that he's just built like so stocky too. I mean, he's not like true. Like he's another reason, and I say this and he'll tear something week 1, but he's another guy that another reason I feel good about him, besides being in a good offense with a good offensive line and being talented, is that he just has been durable and he looks durable, So so some of these guys like Saquon is just a freak, but then if you look at kind of like his body proportions and stuff, it's like these massive thighs and things like that, and like can your ankles support that? So I don't know. I again, if Zeke's playing, like if he's playing honestly, he's probably, to me, like I feel like safest about him over anybody other than maybe, I feel like he and maybe DeAndre Hopkins are like the safest picks you could make.
Oh, I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is that safe. I don't know. I mean, it's just I always worry about players that just been no shows for a whole. Now, granted, situation matters, but situations also change, and to your point, Ezekiel Elliott, I think no matter what the situation, he's going to be great.
Mhm.
Not so with Hopkins.
I think that year though that he had like the rotating carousel of quarterbacks, like he still like they would just throw the ball in the general vicinity, like the side of the field that he was on, and he still came out with like I mean great numbers. I mean, granted, I mean it makes
that year he had terrible fantasy numbers.
He had great numbers. I had him on my team that year, and he was one of the only people that played consistently.
I think you're thinking of there was another year because he's been there longer than what Watson's been.
The next year, I'm talking about whatever the year was. The next year, he didn't get drafted till the 5th round in my fantasy football league. So nobody wanted to draft him because he was so bad the year before. It was like his second year in the league.
I think
3 or 4 years ago.
Right. I think you're going back farther. Like you're going back farther, and but like last year was the year Watson was healthy. The year before was the year where Watson got hurt, and then it turned into a carousel of quarterbacks, and then still regardless of who was throwing the ball, he was still putting up like the same numbers. So I think the fact that he's just kind of developed as a receiver, I'm not as scared about taking him.
Yep.
I still have my reservations about Hopkins, but all right. So who is it? Speaking of reservations, who is it that if he's so you've said, well, I guess Zeke doesn't qualify for that, Jared, right at this point. But who's somebody like that if you feel safe about having him? So is Hopkins that guy for you that you have if you have him on your roster? Then that team in that league, you're feeling good about at this point.
No, I don't ever feel safe about any of the top guys really, because because you have to, especially if you're doing auction league. But even in a snake draft, you're putting so much into them. I mean, you're putting a first, or second round pick into a guy, or like in auction where you've got a $200 budget and Saquon Barkley goes for $75, just a huge chunk of your budget. I never really feel that safe about those guys. And so I always try to, I do a ton of teams. And so I may end up with 15 teams this year. And so it's almost like stocks. I try to diversify my portfolio. Now, the one area where I don't do that is if there's a guy that I think is going lower than he should, and is gonna deliver a higher, return. So even if I, take him in almost every league, if he's a 5th round pick and I think he's going to possibly deliver like 2nd round pick numbers, then I don't care if he ends up getting hurt. I mean, that sucks, but it's still, a 5th round pick. So one of my guys this year that I've had in, for a long time in every league that I was drafting, not as much so lately because his price is starting to go up, is Chris Carson, the Seahawks running back, because the Seahawks have nothing. They have no one to throw to. Jimmy Graham's not there anymore. Doug Baldwin's
Tyler Lockett. But
they have Tyler Lockett, but even like Tyler Lockett, like he had a lot of touchdowns last year. He had like 10 touchdowns. I think he had like maybe 70 receptions or something like that.
But you're looking at stats, dude. He Tyler Lockett's one of the best like route runners in the league.
Yeah, but I mean,
his hands, his quickness. I mean, he could potentially be like the next Antonio Brown.
But then the problem is that Seattle really doesn't have anyone else to throw to.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, you guys hate David Moore.
We just
David
don't
Moore.
think he's as good as you're saying.
No, and DK Metcalf is known for his physique. Like, how many receivers out there are you like, man, that guy is a great receiver because of his physique? Like, he's just gotten notoriety for that.
No. I think that's what caught people's attention, but he's a monster. Like, if you see his like college tape, as far as like
question, that's the question. Then is he going to translate well from college to the NFL?
Yeah, and rookie receivers rarely make a huge impact.
Yeah, no, that's not true. No, I think they don't rarely. You're thinking like, to me, that's the way I think about tight ends, but you often see, like, especially big guys say, like, who was the guy for the Panthers?
Kelvin Benjamin.
Kelvin Benjamin. This is the kind of guy he could be. Kelvin Benjamin, you've got last year you had was Goodwin was Godwin, was he a rookie last year? No,
I believe last year was his second year.
Second year.
Yeah.
But you often have these rookie wide receivers that come in, and you can get, for example, was it Ridley for Calvin Ridley? Yeah.
Yeah, but he was another one that it was like people are letting him slip this year because they're expecting regression because he was kind of a Tyler Lockett situation in terms of numbers where 10 touchdowns, didn't have 1,000 yards. I don't think he had 900 yards. I think he was like eight something maybe. Not that many receptions. And he had like a couple of like 3 touchdown games. And
I know he was sitting on my bench.
Right. And so he blew up for a couple of games, but I mean, again, he's playing in an offense with, Matt Ryan, with Julio Jones, with, Hooper, Sanu, Coleman. And so I think they just he kind of got lost, people weren't really like focusing on him because he hadn't really been doing that much. And then all of a sudden, they're just going to throw the ball to him every time. So that's another thing I look for is just consistency. I don't like boom or bust players. And so, I won't typically draft like, one guy. Well, I don't know if we want to get off on this. We want to just stick to like the guys that, that we're getting a lot of shares of. So yeah, Chris Carson's probably the guy that I have trying to think the most of, in terms of shares. And I've got a lot of shares of George Kittle.
Me too.
Because, I don't know for sure if he's going to do what he did last year again. But San Francisco's like receiving core is not significantly different than last year. I'm not really that certain that their running game is going to be significantly. I mean, even though they've got Coleman now and they've got McKinnon back, I'm not sure it's going to be that different. So the value of being able to get Kittle at the end of, maybe mid to late third round or in an auction draft for $27-28 versus Kelsey, who's going at the top of the second round. And in auction, Kelsey is going for insane numbers in auction. I saw him go for $51.
I see in snake draft, he is often first or second round. I see him going.
I don't know how many teams you're playing in where he's going first round.
Yeah, first round. Well, I haven't seen him a lot.
Usually it's
14. No, it's
usually it's top of the second round, but I've seen him go like 8th, 9th pick once or twice. So, I think that's too high.
Well, he did have wide receiver numbers last year, and not much has changed.
No, right? No, I think you can make the case for him doing that. For me, it's more kind of like we talked about, like with the position, like the dangers of injury with the position, and like I've gotten burned by Rob Gronkowski before, which Kelsey hadn't had the injury history of Rob Gronkowski. But, if you do have that, he's almost like as somebody put it, like Kelsey last year was like a cheat code, because being able to get like wide receiver 1 numbers from the tight end position. And that's really what you have to look at in fantasy is, the positions where you can, or how you can get significantly more at a spot like that. So if I knew for sure he was going to be healthy, and I do have him in a couple leagues, but if I knew for sure he was going to be, all year, then I'd take him. But it is a little risky with that spot.
What about you, AJ?
Kind of funny you mentioned that. Typically, when I find a player that I really like and I want to draft, it has to be over consistent production, pretty much over multiple years. So I don't always feel super comfortable with players that are like huge 1 year. I'm not entirely safe drafting them because I don't know if the situation is going to be the same this year. So typically the players that I want to take in a draft are players that have performed well for me before. And so the main three, we've already talked about two of them. Typically, I've always wanted DeAndre Hopkins. I've had him for 2 or 3 straight years, and he's always performed well. Travis Kelce's always performed well for the past 2 years. I'd pretty much rather take him over any tight end. And probably the guy I really want the most in all of my leagues is Juju Smith-Schuster. The most.
Juju's your guy, huh?
Yes, absolutely. For 2 straight years, he's been absolutely incredible for me. And I feel like he's going to be the number one person in Pittsburgh. The problem is mid-second round, you're either going to take Kelce or Smith-Schuster, so I can't take both of them. But whichever one ends up falling to me, typically that's the one I'm going to take because I trust both of them to give me constant production.
I've seen Schuster. So Juju's been rising quite a bit to where now I see him with a couple of the wide receivers getting a little dinged up, like Beckham. Mm-hmm. I've seen him rise to like right below Hopkins.
Yeah,
wow. It's like goes Hopkins, Julio, Juju. I think
it's Hopkins, Julio, Beckham,
Juju. And Devontae. Devontae too. So like, what I've seen is like typically like Hopkins, Devontae, and then really like after that for me, it's been a mix of stuff. Like sometimes it'll be Julio, sometimes it'll be Beckham, sometimes it'll be Michael Thomas, and then Juju somewhere in there. But sometimes Juju can jump any of those. So I think in terms of like you said, like him being just a safe guy, I think he is. I mean, he's going to be the number one guy in Pittsburgh. The only thing that scares me about that situation a little bit is, a full season where he's not so much maybe the guy, because I think he'll be still okay with that. But, with Antonio Brown there, he was able to play in the slot more. And so he's going to move outside more. He's going to see more coverage from their number one cornerback. And so that scares me a little bit. I think he'll still be fine, but I think that is like a change that is kind of getting overlooked because he's played there a little bit. Like there were a couple of games where Antonio Brown was hurt. And so he stepped out there and he still did well, so, but with not having like a bigger representative sample, that it does give me like just a little teeny tiny bit of concern.
I think a great strategy when it comes to Juju Smith, if I go Juju, I go Moncrief. Because you can get Moncrief later, like especially after he got a little dinged up. You can get him in 7th round, maybe later. And he's going to be the clear number 2 there. I believe at this point he's going to be the clear number 2 in Pittsburgh. And he could see, especially at the beginning of the year where everybody focuses on Juju, he could see it. He's talented.
He
is a talented, tall, like he's lanky and strong. I could see him, especially in the red zone when everybody's putting everything towards, blocking the run and taking down Juju. You see Moncrief with his like tight end type build and abilities pulling down the ball.
Yeah, I agree. But like as a Colts fan too, like, I don't know. He's just one of those guys that he has some trouble staying healthy and he would end up with a ton of touchdowns, but not necessarily that many yards. So I think like what could happen is James Washington ends up not starting out the year as the number 2 guy, but like being at some point in the season a steal of a pickup because Moncrief just can't stay healthy or something like that. And then suddenly you've got maybe James Washington putting up like Juju numbers from last season.
Steal or of a pickup.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting strategy. The league I'm in with you, Jared, it's so many of my leagues are deeper. Like lately I've been in ones where like you can't find anybody on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
The one that league, like there's so much gold. I'm just like looking at it like and so the question is, it's like, how much do you take someone and put them on someone like Washington or Moncrief and put them on your bench? How much do you just leave them on the waiver wire and just keep an eye on them, put that little star on them and keep an eye on them?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it entirely depends on the depth of your league and stuff. And and like, that's one of those leagues. And I've got several others where like there are a handful of guys that I'm like, I want to pick that guy up, but there's no one that in order to do it, I would have to drop someone like Lamar Miller or Jordan Howard or something like that.
Is it a small league? Is it like a 10-team league or something?
It's a 10-team league, but but what I've experienced over the years is because I've played in a lot of leagues, and different leagues, you'll get a collection of people that don't care that much about a certain position, and it's kind of weird. I've been in leagues where the waiver wire for wide receivers will just be barren. Like they have picked that sucker clean. But then like running backs, well, not usually maybe running backs, but usually it tends to be more like, the running backs are all picked clean and there's wide receivers and tight ends there. Right. But I have seen it in all ways where there will be just some position that there are two guys sitting on there that are on like 95% of rosters. But for whatever reason, there's just nobody in the league that has them, and I can't pick them up because I don't have a spot that I can justify it for. Other people do. Other people have a spot that if I was running their team, I'd be like, hey, you need to, drop this guy for that guy.
I tend to do that. I'll like suggest like, hey, like especially somebody like later on in the season who is struggling. Like I'd much rather him pick up that person than number one guy. Like, hey,
I've done that.
I've
done that. Yeah.
Okay, so the guy I have on most of my leagues that I feel when I look at my roster, let me make sure this is true.
and make sure you're able to remember his name.
Yes.
The guy that I have in every league who's my favorite player is what's the guy's name?
Well, I have the most shares of Kittle. To pick out back off of what you said about Kittle, I think for me, Kittle just seems like somebody like skill wise, he's up there. The situation wise, I don't know who else they're going to throw to.
And the big difference, sorry, real quick, like the big difference between, like I feel like in normal conditions, like, him and Ertz would be right there together. But the big difference with Ertz this year is Philadelphia has added a significant amount of talent, this year, because Alshon Jeffrey is going to be, there from kind of the start where he was dinged up last year. They added Deshaun Jackson, Dallas Goedert, the tight end that was a rookie last year. He could emerge more this year. Miles Sanders is a rookie running back that they drafted. So that's the worry with Ertz and why I think Kittle is a better value, over him.
And that's the thing is that you can get him cheaper. I think you still have to take him like second, third round, but for the most part, I've been getting them pretty cheap. Of course, I've been drafting early in the year, and nobody was really focusing on Kittle as much. It seems like he's harder to get these days. But the real guy, since you already mentioned Kittle, I was going to bring up Godwin. I know you're not a big Godwin fan, but I have Godwin in almost all my leagues, and I just believe that that the Buccaneers are going to be an incredible offense this year. I don't know if they're going to be like playoff contenders, like NFL wise, but like as far as fantasy, I think it's going to be a fantasy smorgasbord for all the players. Maybe except for maybe who like Ronald Jones, their running back.
The running backs. Yeah,
I'm not sure about running backs, but I think they're going to be throwing like crazy. I think I'm just tempted. That's I was thinking about, as far as leagues, I'm tempted to pick up Winston everywhere. Although I just worry about him. I feel like Godwin is someone who I can get the value. I don't know, this is gonna sound weird, but I can get the value of Winston without factoring in all of his mistakes, because he's going to be throwing so much to Godwin. I just believe. I don't know.
I think the danger though with Chris Godwin is the fact that, first off, he's in Tampa, which I don't even know. We have no idea how they're going to produce this year. And second off, they're playing a lot of good to decent defenses over the year. They're playing Pittsburgh, they're playing Dallas, they're playing Los Angeles, they're playing New Orleans. I just don't know if he's going to be able, Tampa Bay in general is going to be able to keep up with all those defenses and get the points you're saying that they can.
Well, I think that's one of my arguments for like all these defenses. What do they have? One thing, they have really good run defenses, right? Mm-hmm. They're gonna in order to keep up, they're gonna have to be. You talk about air raid. They're gonna have to be throwing like crazy. And who are they? Who are these good defenses? Well, I don't know if they're great defenses. Who are these defenses going to be targeting? Evans. They're going to be shutting Evans down. Who's going to benefit from that? To me, Godwin.
Okay. And OJ Howard, maybe.
Yeah, OJ Howard too. That would be another good. You talk about like these tight ends to pick up, like Hooper, OJ Howard. These are great gems to get in the later rounds.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I've got one league where I went really running back heavy. Godwin's my number one receiver, but the only problem is I also like Mike Evans like value. Like even as a third round guy, I like Mike Evans value because I think he can, challenge, some of those receivers that are ahead of him. Yeah. And especially like, again, going back to auction drafts, like Evans is $35, DeAndre is $55, Beckham, Julio, those guys all typically go for like 48, 49, 50. So I've been taking Evans in some leagues to be like the number one guy. And then I don't want to take, I'm not going to take the team's other wide receiver to have as my starting receiver. So that's really my only thing with Godwin. I would probably have more shares of him if it weren't for that. But no, I like him. I think Tampa is going to have to just do nothing but throw the ball. And like you're saying, like it is kind of one of those things where Jameis Winston's interceptions don't count against Chris Godwin. So
exactly.
So that's good. But I don't know who. It'll be interesting to see. Like I don't know who their backup is now. Like Winston and Fitzpatrick were both so inconsistent that they like just alternate. They're like, okay, well you had a 1 touchdown, 5 interception game. Now you're benched. We're going to put the other guy who had a 1 touchdown, 5 interception game 3 weeks ago. Yeah. He gets to come out of timeout and we'll put him back in. And so Fitzpatrick's in Miami now. So I don't know.
Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine. Oh, Blaine. Yeah. Okay. That doesn't make me feel better. But no.
Gabbert. Actually, Gabbert is a decent backup. He's
for a backup, I guess.
It's interesting though, because he's a lot different than Winston.
Oh yeah.
Winston is such a precision thrower, not precision thrower, but what am I thinking? Like he just long distance thrower.
He's like a Brett Favre.
Almost, Whereas Gabbert is like a check down run, like he checks down or runs. Like he's got two bullets.
Yeah. So, and that doesn't bode well if he ends up playing. That doesn't bode well for Godwin.
No, it doesn't.
It might be okay for Howard.
Right.
It might be okay for Evans to a certain extent because he can, even though he's a bigger guy, he can, get some run after the catch stuff. But Godwin's thing last year was really kind of being the deep threat. So that would not bode well for him at all.
You're right. And it's interesting that Godwin is the deep threat. I was expecting last year. It's interesting that the Evans got peppered, and Godwin got the deep threat. I thought it was going to be opposite. I guess I just considered Godwin more of a slot player and Evans is more of the X, but it didn't end up looking like that.
But I mean, to your point though, I mean, like you look at all the receptions that are, that are gone from Tampa now, like Deshaun Jackson, he's gone. Humphreys, who was
Daddy.
Yeah. All of a sudden, like he was one of those weird players where all of a sudden he would, blow up for a couple of games. And have like Julian Edelman type, numbers or stuff like that. So those are gone. They're going to have to put them somewhere because they can't suddenly run. So yeah, no, I do like Tampa Bay's offense. just or their pass catchers. It's just, like with Jameis Winston, you that's the real gamble there, I think.
Well, I'm actually, you guys are starting to make me warm on Jones, because you can get him so cheap. I'm starting to think like maybe they're going to have some kind of semblance of a run game.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind though, Peyton Barber's there too.
Yeah,
So.
that's the thing, is it's going to be like a 50-50 split. Like neither of them are anything special.
Yeah, but I'm talking about getting somebody dirt cheap, throwing them on my bench. Maybe Peyton Barber or Jones would be a good idea to just see what happens.
Right, but it's like getting dirt cheap. Like there's
gotta be something better.
There's a reason that it's dirt. It is dirt, so that's why it's dirt cheap.
Well, but here's the thing about arbitrage is you don't know. The thing about the NFL is you don't know that it is dirt. It could be gold. I don't know. Just looking at Jones, I think Jones has skill. I think he's more skilled than Barber. It's just whether he's not fast, like he's got good vision, and I think he's powerful. He's just not very fast. He's slow Jones. Okay. Anyways, moving on. So those are the guys that we feel good about having on our bench, on our roster. I keep saying bench. The next thing I wanted to talk about was preseason. Does preseason matter? Have you guys been watching any of the games? Do any of these guys who are popping, say, in the preseason, is this all just noise, or do you take notice? Is there anything we can derive from the information we're getting in preseason?
AJ, you want that one?
Sure. I mean, there is some things you can do, and it made a lot more sense when the NFL kind of had this unwritten rule where week 3, that's when the starters really come in. That's when they play the most of the first half, and we figured out. And then, especially last year, you look at Matt Nagy didn't even play any of the Chicago starters in game 3, period. And now almost no one's playing. They're only playing their starters for a drive or two pretty much throughout the whole preseason. And so it's kind of nice. You can see second string players really come out and kind of get to flourish in an environment that's better for them. But granted, they're still playing against mostly second string players. Preseason is really an unknown. And I mean, for crying out loud, the NFL is even considering shortening or even eliminating the preseason now that we're looking at it. So fantasy wise, it's just, I mean, I'm going to watch the Bears game tonight, sure, but is it really going to give me any information on the preseason for fantasy football?
Well, yeah. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, like every year, there's just less and less really that you can get out of it. And I mean, like, I feel like, there was a noticeable drop off last year, and I think this year there's been even more of a noticeable drop off. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of like who's a guy that has done something in the preseason that has made me think like, oh, I'm going to go after him.
Right.
I can think of a couple of guys last year. This year, the starters have played so sparingly and stuff. Like I honestly struggle to think of one guy that I've seen like play with the first team offense and do enough that I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So
I'll give you two guys. Darius Geis, Juice, the Juice Meister. Watch it, because like, so coming off an ACL, I had no idea. He was such a big deal last year. He was like
fourth, fifth round pick.
Yeah, before the injury, and then so my question was, did the ACL change the situation? Did it change him physically? And watching him yesterday, I think it was yesterday I was watching him. I will have to say physically, no. He was cutting and running as fast as I've seen anybody run and cut, and cutting hard too. So physically, that took away any concerns I had physically, because I accidentally picked him up in this draft I didn't show up to.
I hate when I accidentally pick people up.
Yes.
No, it's like it was an auction draft that I forgot to show up to. So I don't know how the
For
bot.
money? Was it for money?
Mhm.
Dude.
Oh my god.
Yeah, $1,000 league. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably like a $20 league, but
I hope so.
I don't know. but I'm fairly excited about having guys at this point. So I'm looking at the league right now. I've got Wilson as my QB, which I'm not too excited about. But there's so many QBs on the bench. I'll just stick with them and see what happens. I've got Godwin. The robot knew who I wanted, I guess. Godwin, Robinson, which is interesting. I got Elliott. This is my other Elliott share. Geis. So that's where I'm really weak, I guess. I got Kittle, Ertz, Hooper.
Ooh. Wait, you got 3 tight ends?
You gotta
it's a 2 tight end, and it's a. Well, go ahead.
It's a two. It's a 2
Well,
tight end.
it's got 2 flexes that are triple threat. They got like tight end, wide receiver. So I don't know. I'm not crying about it. But then it just drops off. I've got Miller, Hamilton, Burkhead, Stills. Blah, blah.
How many teams?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
Doesn't know how many teams.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams.
Okay.
Bad.
That's not terrible for if it was a 10-team league, I'd be like, oh, they really screwed you over. Like they saw that, like they let your bot bid on guys they didn't want. But for a 12-team, that's not terrible.
Yeah, and the thing is well, it's actually worse. If it was a 10-team league, there'd be a lot more on the waiver wire. I'm looking at the waiver wire and like, oh my gosh, it looks like desert.
Well, you need to trade one of those tight ends for a receiver. It sounds.
That's what I've been trying to do. Yeah, I'm trying to move Ertz.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get Ertz. I'm trying to get a good running back or wide receiver. Because if I can, anyways. So nobody wants to hear about mine. But I was saying that to say,
guys. You're talking about guys.
Yeah, guys. And then the other guy is so I've been looking for. I need to find a solution for quarterback because I'm in a 2-quarterback league that is like a 14-team league, and I think I'm starting Dak. So I'm trying to look for one of these guys. I think I picked up who's the team. So Miami has. Oh yeah, so Miami is. You've got Fitzpatrick and
Rosen.
So I picked both of them up, hoping that one of them, so I could play Fitzpatrick the first half of the year and Rosen the second half of the year. And watching the preseason, I'm discouraged.
Yeah. It's bad. Like Miami's line is terrible. Like whoever's behind there is just going to take. Like they need to have like a Patriots. It's good. Maybe it's good that they have the one of those assistant coaches from the Patriots as their head coach now, because he needs to implement that little Patriots offense where they just like dump the ball off really quickly, because that offensive line cannot hold anyone back.
But Fitzpatrick is used to that. The first 4 games last year, he was fucking god tier for fantasy.
Came in.
Huh?
Then the Bears came in.
Yeah. Plus,
then Winston came back.
Well, that's part of it, but he also had look at the guys he could just throw the ball up to. Yeah. Evans, Howard, Jackson, Godwin, Humphreys. Who does Miami have? Devontae Parker. Are we still trying to make Devontae Parker a thing that happens? There's some. Yeah, right. There's some.
Wilson might be a sneaky sleeper.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I mean, either way, it's not the level of guys that he had in Tampa. And Tampa's offensive line was not as bad as the Bears made them look bad, but they were not as bad as what the Dolphins are. So
I don't know about that. I don't know.
I will confidently state that Miami's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking bad in the preseason, but I don't know. We'll see.
What are your other options? What are your other options for quarterback?
All right. Well, then my other
because that's if you're in a 2-quarterback league of 14 teams, that's 28 quarterbacks gone.
Mhm.
Completely.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. My other options are Case Keenum and his backup. What's his name from
That's
the
quarterback
Dolphins?
competition, basically.
Yeah, Tannehill.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping Keenum. I think I'm going to play Keenum. I still think Fitzpatrick can give me some good points. I mean, I've got Dak. This is just my second quarterback. You know,
I would honestly take I would probably in that situation, if you got a spot or maybe even drop Keenum for him, I would probably do Tannehill and see if he somehow beats Mariota out for that job. Because I mean, Tennessee's they've got good receivers. They've got Corey Davis. They've got and I'm gonna
today's Corey Davis is yesterday's Tony Parker, or not Tony Parker. What's his name? Devontae Parker.
Yeah, but I mean Devontae Parker, I feel like they're two different. I mean, part of the thing has been an injury thing with Devontae Parker. He just can't stay healthy. Corey Davis will be on the field. I think he missed part of one season, but I mean he'll be on the field generally. But Marcus Mariota just can't get him the ball. So I don't know. I would probably feel better about Tannehill than Keenum.
Really?
If Tannehill, well, just as a flyer to see if he wins the job. I don't know.
That's hilarious because
I don't think he's going to win the job. Though. Go ahead, AJ.
it's just that literally everyone you brought up who you said you've liked in the preseason, I do not like it at all.
Oh, but like guys.
No. Look, I
think you're sleeping on guys.
I know Jay Gruden has said he's good, but here's the thing: he's in Washington. Adrian Peterson still did perform well in his first 2 weeks when he played for Washington as well, but it's Washington. I don't trust anyone on the Redskins offense right now.
We just can't. But see, that's the thing is that this is a complete situational bias. We don't have any idea. This is the NFL where someone like Washington, like you would have said the same thing about, so everybody thought that last year, who is it? I was thinking about, Miami. Everybody thought Miami was going to be trash last year for fantasy. We got a lot of good Miami.
They were inconsistent.
Did we?
No, I had Kenyon Drake, the best player, and he was a mess.
He actually had a pretty good production. Kenyon Drake and some of the wide receivers had pretty good.
Kenyon Drake every other week would score 20, and then the next week he would get 3 and do absolutely nothing. He was a mess. He was the Antoine Bolden of fantasy football.
I think if we look at those numbers, it's not going to be flattering for your argument. It's like Miami was pretty bad. I'll say this about Darius Geis, though. I think I'm not opposed to taking him, even though I think Washington's situation is terrible. I don't think they're going to be good. The big problem for him is Adrian Peterson being there, and that could get resolved, because Adrian Peterson doesn't want to share carries with anybody. So Adrian Peterson could say, "Well, I don't want to be here. I want to go to a team that's going to make me the star," not really realizing still that dude, you're old now. You're not going to be the star. So I think if you can get generally you can get Geis at a pretty cheap price. So if you take him as a fifth running back, I think you're fine. I think he's another guy that you can kind of stash and maybe if he becomes, the uncontested starter. But the problem is right now, okay, Washington's bad.
Yeah.
He's splitting with both Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson, who's the third down receiving back. But to your point, I was going to say the thing about the ACL. Yeah, players coming off an ACL injury or something like that, to me, that doesn't matter anymore. Another guy, I'm serious. If you look at the numbers, they timed Cooper Kupp he tore his ACL late last year or mid-season. He's now moving faster than he was before. And you were talking about with guys. No. This isn't just like a one-off or something like that. We've gotten good enough at surgery that we can make players a little bit better initially than they were before, because it's I don't know, it's almost like like a rubber band or something where you like make a new rubber band. Like it just makes it better temporarily. It's the same thing with pitchers and Tommy John surgery. If they don't re-injure it, like they will put up better numbers when they come back because it's actually tighter and stronger.
Well, okay. I don't think statistically it's very good for people coming off of ACL. Like you've got Adrian Peterson. Who else has done better after, or not better? Yeah, better after they've come off an ACL.
I mean, Deshaun Watson last year put up a great season.
He didn't put up a great season. He put up a great end of the season.
Top 5 in quarterbacks.
He was on the bench. He was on the waiver wire for most of the last year.
That doesn't mean that he was a bad quarterback. It just means your league.
I'm talking about
missed him.
But I'm talking about for fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm curious to now look and see. I can't believe I thought Deshaun was pretty good the whole season.
No, I don't think he was. I could be wrong, but I think his last 5 games were really good. But he didn't play the full season for one thing.
No, he did. He played all 16.
Did he? Okay.
He played all 16.
Well, then I don't think he was good for fantasy all season.
Deshaun Watson was the number 4 quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, because he had a huge
over
final
4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns.
That doesn't mean he was good for fantasy.
5 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, he was good for fantasy.
Okay, so his first game, they played in New England. So he was not good in New England. He had 176 yards. His games 2, 3, 4, 5, he put up, these were his passing numbers: 310, 385, 375, 375, and to go along with them, the rushing yards were 40, 44, 36, 41.
Yep.
That's pretty good. What I mean, that was 3 games.
And
well, that was 4 games. 4 games, but
4 games he did well too.
And then for the season, I mean, he was a top 5 quarterback, so he didn't start slow. He had like a little he had like a little lull in the middle when he played like the Jacksonville defense and a couple of those. But so the argument was like he was starting off slow because of the injury, but clearly he wasn't starting slow because of the injury.
That's a good point.
More than a good point, but
well, no, but the thing is when we're talking about quarterbacks, is a different story. They don't have to rely on.
He runs.
He does. He runs, but not as much as say like a running back or a running back is
Lamar Jackson's the only quarterback who runs as much as a running back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's harder when you ask like who's a guy who's come off of the injury and done well. Like I have to start like rolling through my mind like, okay, who's been injured and stuff. Like I think it'd be like who can you think of are some guys who have had like an ACL injury, and I don't mean like late in their career, but like early-ish in their career.
Well, I mean, like I guess the reason I remember is it was who was it that was Charles.
Yeah, but we're going back a pretty good ways,
It's like 3 years ago.
Jamal Charles.
Jamal Charles was like maybe it's 3 years ago. And I think everybody said that he could come back and be fine after. It's just some people do, some people don't. I think that's the key for me. Is some people's bodies are conducive to these surgeries, and some people's just they fall apart after this kind of injury. Jamal Charles fell apart. Like,
okay, well, granted, when he did get injured, he had already played for 7 years at that point.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at the guy's history too. So so I pulled it up and so we're looking at, I guess he got hurt in 2011 and he missed most of that. He only played 2 games. I don't remember if that was an ACL tear or not. I think maybe it was. And then 2015.
No, wait, was it 2011?
It was an ACL injury. Yeah.
Was it?
I literally just looked it up. Yeah.
So 2015 was his second ACL injury?
I think so. And so then so that's what, to me, that's kind of what you have to start looking at. Like are they tearing it multiple times or multiple legs? Then you really do get into like some guys' bodies just it's not that there's a specific danger of them re-injuring that part. It's that they're just not durable. There was my favorite guy that I can think of was an old or well, this is kind of a sad story, but it's funny too. It was like a baseball player called Rondell White. And this was like back in the early 90s. And so he got the nickname Ron DL because he was constantly on the DL. So I think there's just guys like that, but I don't feel like
but who are we really talking about right now? Are we talking about Cooper Kupp? Like who is coming off an ACL?
Kupp and Geis.
Kupp and Geis. Are there any others?
Oh, what's his name?
I'm sure there is, but I can't.
I mean of note. I don't think there's Kupp, Geis, maybe Lee, Marquise Lee.
Marquise Lee, that's who it was.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of ACL tears. I mean, obviously. Well, anyways, I think it is an interesting topic. I think it's something to watch. I am watching Kupp. I am curious about Kupp because he's a phenomenally talented player, but you talk about what you're kind of talking about is like this injury, what people call injury prone or what have you. He tends to get nicked up all the time from in my memory. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, he's only been, I don't know what his college situation was. He's only been in the league for, I think, 2 years. 2 years. Yeah. And I think his first year, I want to say he missed a game or two his first year. But yeah, one. I thought he played 15. So last year, and he didn't have any, he wasn't like, banged up last year. It was just that one big, injury. So, but yeah, I love him as a value because, he was tracking last year for 1,000 yards, 80 catches, and 10 touchdowns or so because Goff liked to throw to him because I mean with the other team's top quarterbacks having to get cover Woods and Cooks plus Gurley. He liked to throw to him because, typically he was going to have a lesser defender on him. So he was really like beating the other two in terms of like touchdown production.
Yeah. But wasn't he, you talk about boomer bust, wasn't he pretty dependent on
super consistent?
He was very consistent.
He was consistent with touchdowns, but was he consistent with yards?
Super consistent. Like it was like you could mark him down for like 65, 70 yards every week. That was like he literally put up the same stat line almost every week. That was kind of the crazy thing about not just him, but really Woods too, to a certain extent. Was like,
because that's what I was gonna say. I thought Woods was more of the consistent, but it was both of them. And Cooks was it Cooks?
Cooks was more
Cooks was the inconsistent one. Yeah, he was boomer bust. He's
guy.
the big play threat. Yeah, he would put up a couple of like 35-yard games, and then he would go off for like 140 and 2 touchdowns or something. So yeah, Cooks is boomer bust.
It's interesting. For some reason I just tend to gravitate more towards Woods than Cooper Kupp. And maybe I'm just shy of to me, he feels, I think he might have stung me when he did miss that game. Was he injured his rookie year? I don't know. There's just something about him that I'm shy of him. And Woods just seems so, and you can get Woods cheaper, and he's just as consistent.
You can't get him cheaper. You get like Woods, Woods is like double the price. Yeah, Woods is like double the price.
Woods is double the.
Kupp is like 9th, 10th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Woods, Woods typically goes about 5th, and Kupp is like 7th at the earliest. I've seen him go 7th some, but sometimes like 8th and stuff. Now I think his thing's rising, like especially after like they're saying like, oh, he's timing faster in these drills and stuff like that. He looks completely healthy. So now you probably can't get him past 7th or so. But like Woods and like auction price. You could get Kupp for like a few bucks before, and Woods was going for like 12, 15, something like that. So he's like I agree with you. I mean, Woods is the better number one. Yeah, he's the number one. He's going to have more receptions, I think, and more yards and stuff like that. But in terms of the value, I don't think it's going to be, like significant enough that like if you can get Kupp in the in the 8th, and
That's true. I mean, speaking of arbitrage, like if people are worried about his injury, I guess it does come down to whether or not his injury. Okay, so you're saying he's like his injury made him better. I don't know. That might be true.
Well, he's never had any injury history in college, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just kind of where we are, like with athlete science, to where, like I said, same thing with pitchers with Tommy John, like that when the whatever the UCL or whatever is the ligament in the elbow, when they would replace it, they would come back that first kind of year or so, or maybe it was like year 2, and they would actually put up better numbers because it was like, it was like almost kind of like a new muscle in there. So so I think I don't know, we'll see.
After this segment of Disprove Judah, let's move on.
Disprove? No, argue against. You haven't shown any proof.
Oh, we have shown plenty.
I don't know. Deshaun's numbers were pretty good proof.
I mean, that's not proof that an ACL is like that.
You said Deshaun Watson was terrible last year.
Oh, he was.
Really inconsistent.
You know what it is the thing is, last year he had, those are good numbers, but last year, do you remember the quarterbacks were off the charts? Like everybody was getting really good. It seemed to me like 20 points a game for fantasy was nothing in a 6 point per
Yeah, that's the thing, though. The standard is 4 points per touchdown. 6 points per touchdown is more of an oddity.
No, it isn't.
Well,
No.
but if you remember the big difference last year, basically that's just the new standard going forward, because the big change last year was the what we could almost call like the Clay Matthews rule, like where if you're a defender, you can't look at the quarterback too mean, or that's going to be roughing the passer, you know? So last year was the year where they were like, all right, look, you can run up to the quarterback, cradle him gently, lay him on the ground.
Make sure you get its head.
Make sure, hold him like a baby. Hold him like a baby. Support his head and neck. And so now, like, quarterbacks can stand in there and be a little bit more fearless because you don't have to worry about taking that hit. So they've got the rules for like hitting them like from here up. They've got the Tom Brady rule for you can't hit them from the knees down. And so quarterbacks just run a lot more. It's not like the old Steve Young, Troy Aikman days where defenders could just like basically turn you into a pancake sandwich or something. So that's just going to be the standard going forward, is you're going to see crazier and crazier numbers out of them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And that's what, like, next week I'd like to talk about quarterbacks and what's a crazy approach to quarter, like, because it could be this year that you don't even have to, like, in a 1 quarterback league, you don't even have to get a quarterback. You pick one up off the waiver wire like a kicker, like in some of these leagues. I'm looking at the waiver wire and thinking I could use any of these quarterbacks.
You could stream them like streaming defenses.
Yeah. The streaming quarterback thing, it has been a thing for a while, but it just seems like this year it's like there are so many of them.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, unless there's any final things to say, we're gonna have to. We've hit the 1 hour mark, and we're gonna sign off.
Jared, you for us?
I think I'm good. I don't think I have anything else to offer.
All right. Anything you guys are watching? Is there any? When is the third preseason? We're into the third
this week.
Yeah,
this weekend. Yeah. So tonight, tomorrow, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a game or two Monday, but yeah, it started Thursday. Yeah, and had a couple last night. So nothing significant. It's just kind of watching for injuries. Really, that's what I'm doing, is just like making sure, I've got a couple more drafts. I've got a draft tonight and tomorrow night, auction drafts. So, well, and the thing that comes to my mind as I'm watching is, like, this guy could be starting, especially with running backs. This guy, you see so many, running backs get hurt.
You go, like this guy could be the starting running back for the team come week 15. So
Yeah.
I am paying attention to some of these like third string running backs just to get familiar with their name, watch them on the. All right, what?
Darwin Thompson.
Ah, yes, your man. But see, that's like one that he's probably going to be. You picked him up. People are talking about him, but there's a lot of them that are just gonna stay on the waiver wire.
It's a lot of them are. Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep an eye on them. AJ, final word.
Yes, I remember a couple last year we had a segment called "How We Doing on a Little Bet We Made." And Jared, you probably don't know this, but last time
anyways, we gotta go.
Made a bet on who would do better: Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously, who I took, or Sterling Shepard. And so now I believe I'm thinking of a consequence for this year.
Okay.
So was there not a consequence last year?
No, because we had to wait till the end of the season to figure out what it was going to be.
It was just who was better at the end of the season.
Yeah, in terms of receiving yards, touchdowns, and points. And
I was hoping like you made him like get a tattoo or something like that. Hillary Clinton head, lower back tattoo.
No, I would not agree to that at all. I did have a consequence though for another bet I lost. I had to change my name.
Oh, yep, I remember that.
I had to change my name in the league.
Yeah, he had to change his league from what was it, Judah Buddha to the Green Bay Browns, who my friend deemed the two worst teams in NFL history. And
interesting.
That was his team name.
I don't mind being called Green Bay and Browns. The Browns ended up being a great team last year by the end of the year. So, once they got Mayfield in there, they were a beautiful team to watch.
Still losing record, but okay.
Oh, I want to talk about the Browns next time. We got to talk more about the Browns.
Ooh, fun.
Because I think it's going to be interesting to watch them. All right, but for now we got to go. Signing off. We don't have sign-offs, do we?
No.
Not really. We need to come up with that.
We'll just do the cold. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.